Today we're going to be talking about the issue list and issue register in Brit Manager. But before we do that, I want to point out that today will just be a preliminary introduction to the issue list and issue register. If you feel overwhelmed at any moment, don't worry, we will go over how to create each list that you need to manage your service issues together. To navigate to the issue register, from the menu ribbon on your Home tab, you'll select the Issues icon. The window that opens is called the Issue Register. The Issue Register is where you'll create issue lists to display and manage all of the issues associated with your property. Right now, I only have one issue list open, called Issue List Number 1. But before we dive into issue lists more, let's take a look at what information is displayed in the Issue Register. The first thing I want to draw your attention to are the buttons right above Issue List Number 1. These are the buttons you'll use to manage your lists, and we'll come back to those in a few minutes. The next thing I want to draw your attention to is the 42 beside Issue List Number 1. This tells me that there are 42 issues displayed in this list. If we zoom out and actually look in the bottom left-hand corner, I can see that information displayed here as well. I can see that I have 42 issues in this list, and of those 42, 34 of them are unread. It also shows me my average time open and my oldest issue. Jumping back up to the top, underneath Issue List Number 1, there's a search bar that you can use to search any relevant text that could be included in the issue title, description, or resolution. By default, any new issue that you add is automatically going to be filtered so that it's only displaying open issues assigned to your user. There are two ways that we can tell what information a list is displaying. The first is the text directly to the right of the Filters button. The second is to actually open up the Basic Filters dropdown. To the right, you can see your property filter. I have access to all of the properties, so you will only see properties that you have access to. Any property that is linked on the issue will be able to be filtered by this list. The next thing that we can look at is the open and closed issue checkboxes. As you can see, only the open issues is checked, and that's by default. If I wanted to see closed issues, I could click Closed Issues. Notice when I do that the number of issues being displayed in my list jumps to 552. Also, the text beside the Basic Filter button changes to All Issues rather than Open Issues. The next thing I want to look at are category, priority, status, and assigned to filters. These are the same selections you have to make anytime you enter a service issue. This is why it's so important that you fill these out completely and accurately. You do have the ability to filter issues linked to a tenant. However, remember that service issues linked to tenants are automatically added as a note item in the tenant's history and notes. So, now that I know what information this list is displaying, I want to give it a name that actually represents that. To do that, we're going to go up to Save List, and this dialog box pops up asking us to rename the issue. I'm going to call this My Open Issues, and click Save. There's going to be a second dialog box that pops up asking you, do you want to make this the default layout for your columns? We are always going to select No. So now I can see that my issue list has been renamed to My Open Issues. The next thing I want to look at is the column layout. Like I mentioned before, anytime you add a new list, this is the default information that will be displayed. However, the default information is not always the most helpful. For example, the issue list we just renamed to My Open Issues will only ever show me open issues assigned to me because that's how we have it set in the basic filters. So, columns such as Closed and Assigned To are taking up room where other, more important information can be displayed. To edit your column layout, we're going to navigate up to the right of your screen and select this button for Set Up Columns. When you do that, a dialog box displays two sets of lists. The list all the way to the left is your available columns. So these are the columns that are not currently displayed in your list, but are available to be displayed. Not all of them are going to be helpful, but some of them might be for us. The selected columns on your right, this is displaying all of the information that your list is currently displaying. So to remove this closed field from view, I'm going to select it, and you can see that it's selected with the blue. And I'm going to use the side-to-side arrows to move it into the other list. You can tell that it's gone because the next field jumps up in its place and there's nothing else above it. Okay, so I also wanted to remove the assigned to field. But what field should I add now? So let's go ahead and add unit. Let's also add description and resolution because those are pretty important. And you can see how I just selected them from the left and moved them over to the right. Any new fields that you add will be at the bottom of your list, and you can see all of them right here. So then, now that we're set, let's click OK. And once it loads again, you can see that our columns have changed. Now, one thing I want to point out is that since I've added these other columns, I do have to scroll to the right to see the description, unit, and resolution, which is pretty annoying. The beauty of issue lists is that it gives you all of the information that you need at a glance. So what if I don't want these fields all the way over to the right? Well, we can change that. The way you do that is you open up the setup columns, and then when we go to our selected columns list, let's go down to the bottom and let's grab description. We're going to click on it, make sure it's highlighted blue, and we're going to use the up and down arrows now to move it up. Let's see, let's say we want our description to be right by the issue name. Let's scroll down and let's grab the resolution and let's bump that up right under description. And our unit number is pretty important, so we can use these two double arrows to pop that all the way up to be our first column in the list. So now let's look at it once we click OK. Let's scroll all the way back over to the left. And now we can easily see I don't have any issues assigned to a unit, but you will, and your maintenance tech definitely will. You have our issue number. Further to the right, we've got our issue name, along with now we can see the description and the resolution, which is very helpful to us. Another note that I want to make is if you are having trouble fitting all of your columns onto one screen and you don't want to have to scroll back and forth, is you can auto size all of the columns by either manually hovering in between two columns until you see this double-headed arrow. You can click and hold and drag to make it bigger manually. You can do that to each column individually. Or if you hover over and double click once you see the double-headed arrow, all of the fields, all of the columns will be automatically sized to fit. And as you can see, it didn't completely solve my problem. I still have to scroll some, but there are a couple of other fields that I can take off of this list if I wanted to. I also want to point out that any changes that you make to either the displayed columns or the column order, you always need to click Save List. And when you do that, it's always going to prompt you like you're going to save a new name. But you don't have to change it, just click Save, and that will save all of your settings. The thing that you don't want to do is spend all of this time getting your columns and your filter set up exactly how you want it, only to exit out and find out that your work wasn't saved. So always, always, always remember, save your list whenever you're in doubt. So now that we've looked at how to rename an existing issue list, how to reorganize, add, and delete columns, and how to read the basic filters, let's create a new list to track our open issues assigned to our maintenance tech. To do that, we're going to navigate to the New List button. And when you click it, it's almost going to look like nothing happens. But that's because the new issue list will always populate to the right of the currently open issue list. To click on it, just tap it and you can tell that you are looking at this list actively because the list is orange now. So, like we talked about, we have our closed column and our assigned to column back because this is the default column layout for any new list. The basic filters show that it's only open issues assigned to me. So to change that, let's go to the Assign To field, and I'm just going to select Taylor Village Maintenance. So when I do that, you can see, number one, that the text beside the basic filters changes to Open Issues Assigned to Taylor Village Maintenance. Let's go ahead and save this list, and we'll rename it Open Maintenance Issues, and click Save. We do not want to make this layout the default column layout. So now we have a list dedicated to all of the issues that are open and assigned to our maintenance tech. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to actually go up and close the issue register, because I want to show you what happens to our new issue list that we just created if we close out and open it back up. You'll see that they didn't auto-populate. We only see issue list number 1. But that doesn't mean that all the work that we did just went to waste. To open up an issue list that you have saved but that's not open currently, you would go up to the New List button and to the right select the down arrow. And this populates a list of all of your saved issue lists. Now, you won't have this many and you don't need this many. In the next video, we'll go over all of the issue lists that you will need to manage your service issues effectively. But for now, just know that this is how you open a closed issue list. So you see, I've got my open issues and open maintenance issues. So let's open both of those back up, and you can see when I clicked that, it populated just to the right. Let's go back and open maintenance issues. And when I select them, it opens up, tells me how many that I have in each one, and they're exactly how we left them. But say I wanted my open issues and open maintenance issues to populate every single time I open the issue register. Thankfully, we can do that by going up to the Services tab and selecting Manage Saved Lists. When that opens, you'll see a list of all of your saved issue lists displayed here. By default, one list has to load automatically, and that is your default list. The default list is the exact same thing as your issue list number 1. They're just called two different things on the two different screens. So before we can uncheck this default list, I'm going to go down and tell them that I want my open issues to load and I want my open maintenance issues to load. I'm going to unselect this. And one more thing I want to point out on here is if you want to change the order in which the tabs are, then it's similar to how you could change your column order. You would select whichever one you wanted to move. You can tell that it's highlighted in orange. Go over to the right to the up and down arrows and move it up or down. Okay. There is no save button on this screen, which may throw some people off, but as soon as you make your selections, you can exit. And I'm going to go ahead and exit the issue register so I can reopen it and see if our changes worked. And they did. So, like I mentioned earlier, in the next video, we're going to go over step by step how to create all of the issue lists that you'll need to manage your issues effectively. If you would like to create your own issue list after we've created the TVG required ones, you may, but remember, try and keep your issue lists at a minimum, because the more lists that you have, the more likely it is that you'll overlook or miss an issue.